All right, guys, I had to make this video today. I wanted to talk about the 2025 Motortrend Truck of the Year. This is such fake news. I can't even wrap my mind around Motortrend made the Ram 1500 Truck of the Year. How is this even possible? They don't make the Hemi anymore. Nobody wants this truck. It's got all kinds of problems. You know, we hear this from 10,000 YouTubers that this thing is terrible. They got water pump issues. They got this, they got that. Nobody wants a Ram 1500. And ever since they've added the Hurricane, nobody's buying them, right? This is what we're told from all these different channels on YouTube. I'm going to show you guys a different perspective and show you that a lot of this is fake news. In fact, Ram is not in any worse position as far as sales than they were with the Hemi. If we look at the actual data, days to inventory, prices, all this stuff, and then ask yourself, this is the other thing, is Tim Kunikas gonna bring back the V8? I don't believe so. I don't think it'll ever happen. Stellantis, FCA, Ram, they just spent billions of dollars trying to develop a turbo inline 6-cylinder. Why would they develop a whole new engine that would arguably get worse fuel economy and worse greenhouse gases than the existing platform they already have? It doesn't make sense to spend money on something that's worse. Plus, if you look at most Ram buyers, a lot of them are buying a Ram, generally speaking, because it's a high value truck, low cost. Developing and spending billions of dollars to create a new V8 would be the opposite. It would make prices go up. They'd have more carbon greenhouse gas credits they'd have to purchase, which makes the vehicle more expensive. I think there's a group of enthusiasts across the world, including myself, that love high-performing V8s and cool stuff. I get it, but 99% of the country, dude, they could give a rip. They just want what puts the most money in their pocket, and they're totally fine with a boosted 6-cylinder engine. And I'm going to show you this data because Ford did the exact same thing 14 years ago, and Ford still to this day gives customers the ability to have the choice. You can have a Coyote, you can have multiple boosted 6-cylinder engines, but I'm gonna show you by data, even though we hear nobody wants a boosted engine, the data shows otherwise. Let's get into this. Okay, so here we go, the fake news. The Ram 1500 for 2025 is Motortrend Truck of the Year. It's not even possible, right? Motortrend didn't even include a V8. Half the trucks that Ram went against were electric, so they were really trying to think outside the box. I personally think, even though Ram is going through some hard times right now, what better legacy brand truck deserves it more than Ram for 2025? They got a refreshed truck. They basically made a TRX replacement that is $30,000 less expensive than the outgoing TRX. Is it a TRX? It is not. It's not a TRX for sure. But they're also offering a truck that's considerably less expensive. It's got more power than the Raptor. They've got the Tungsten, which is arguably the best interior truck in its class, massaging seats. The prices, discounts available right now. When you put all this together, I sort of get it. I mean, they've made a lot of changes in the last year, and even though the Hemi went away, a lot of the changes actually outweigh the downsides. This is going to be a bit of controversial because a lot of people love the Hemi V8. And believe me, I loved the Hemi 20 years ago also, but everybody else kind of stepped up their V8 game in like that entry level V8. The Coyotes came a long ways. The GM 5362 has came a long ways. Ram really hasn't done a lot with the 5.7, and that was their baseline engine. I heard in the industry that Ram actually looked about 10 years ago to updating and having a refreshed, more modernized Hemi to make it meet emissions and have less greenhouse gas like the Brother 6.4 liter. The 6.4 actually got a modernized valve train just before the 5.7 had its, call it, a little bit of a refresh. And by some of these changes, believe it or not, even though the 6.4 produces worse fuel economy than the 5.7, with these new emission standards moving forward, it actually puts out less greenhouse gas. I know it's hard to explain, but in the current regulations, the 6.4 is actually better for emissions than the 5.7. Mind blown. But they had to make a main running engine produce less greenhouse gas. They looked at the 5.7. They just decided not to ever put the money in it. They saw Ford go EcoBoost. They saw GM go with the 4-cylinder turbo. They saw Toyota go boosted with their twin turbo 6-cylinder in the Tundra. So they kind of said, we should do the same. But Ram didn't give their customers the option to say, I'd still like a Hemi, where Ford did. But I'm going to show you a reason that I think it's not maybe the worst choice. Having multiple engine availability options available is really expensive and complex, and it creates more potential issue for quality. Whereas if you just have one engine running, you reduce your variability, less complexity. I mean, look at Toyota. Toyota has twin turbo 6-cylinder or twin turbo 6-cylinder hybrid in their Tundra. That's it. And I don't, there's a whole separate topic on reliability of that engine, but they kept it simple. Ford's got 4 engines available. Ram has basically 3 right now. You got the 3.6, 3.0 standard output, and 3.0 high output for the higher trim levels. So let's look at this data. This tells me the story that I think a lot of people should look at. This is data from 2024 for Ford trucks. This is the halfway point of this year. But I followed this data back to about 2021, and these numbers ring very, very true. If we look at a product mix of the engine breakdowns of when Ford sells of 100% of their market share of Ford trucks, how many of them are EcoBoost? How many of them are hybrid? How many is a V8? When you add it all together, you got 32% of the buys. The number 1 selling engine is the 2.7. The number 2 and shared is 3.5 and a 5.0 and a power boost at 15%. We're going to see this number going up because Ford will try to incentivize more people buying the 3.5 power boost over the 3.5 because it helps their CAFE standards. So I think we're going to see more and more this number is going to creep up. And I've said this before, I think it's a matter of time before the 3.5 standard EcoBoost goes away and is replaced by the power boost. But here's the thing that I think is most interesting about this number. Only 25% of the F-150s sold today are with a 5.0 V8 Coyote engine. It's a great V8 engine. Arguably, just my opinion, I think it's a far superior engine to the Hemi 5.7 liter. Better fuel economy, better for performance, better reliability, less emissions, and if you want to strap a Whipple supercharger on it and make 700-800 horsepower, the engines take it. You can't do any of that with a 5.7 Hemi. So Ford gives customers the option to get all of these engines, and yet still 75% of the trucks sold don't have the V8. So if you think about it, if you're Ram, did they actually make a bad decision by not keeping the Hemi around? And arguably, why would you develop a new V8 that competes with a 5-liter Coyote if 5-liter Coyote only represents 25% of Ford's market share? Why wouldn't you chase the 75% of market share of what you're after? That's, if I'm Ram, that's the logical thing. I think what we'll see happen is they're probably going to come out with some sort of Hurricane hybrid, and it'll make a ton of power, better fuel economy. I don't think we'll ever see a V8 again from Ram in a 1500. We'll see it in a Durango for a little bit of time until that program expires. You're going to see it in the 2500 and 3500 in their HD trucks, but I just don't think we're going to see that ever again in the 1500. Now, this article was from 3 years ago. 3 years ago, only 10% of the market share of the Ford F-150 was a power boost. So we've seen in 3 model years, they've got a 50% increase. They went from 10% to 15% market share of the F-150, bumped in product mix to 15% of the market share. And the 5.0, let's see, it's 80% of the market share was EcoBoost. So with these numbers, it also included kind of their Power Stroke back in the day, but we still see around 20% of the market was the 5.0 Coyote. Let's look at this. You know, the inventory went up, right? This is what we keep being told. Inventory keeps going up. It sure does. Here's the inventory. Here's Dodge, 121 days. It's went up. But a lot of these numbers started going up prior to the Hurricane coming out. This has been going on for 18 months. This isn't just since the Hemi came out. What the driver has been of inventory increase with Ram, Stellantis, it's not just, if you look, it's all of their platforms. They got a little bit cocky, in my opinion, with their pricing strategy during COVID, and they outpaced the market for price increases. Well, now they're caught, and you could see a lot of dealerships marking their trucks down drastically. And if you see, there's other channels already talking about this. Some dealers are already seeing trucks are selling now with Ram. Here's another thing I want to talk about. Everybody's talking about, well, is a hellcat coming back? It's possible a hellcat could come back, but if you really logically think about it, if they have to go and modify this latest generation of Ram truck to re-retrofit and add the hellcat back in, let's say to a Ram 1500, if the 2024 Ram 1500 TRX was $125,000, just so you know, it started at $72,000 in 2021, $72,000. And by the end, they were at $98,000, and most of the TRXs you see available are at $124,000. And people still aren't buying them. They're still marked down $10,000 to $15,000, and they're still available. So then you say, well, if Ram's gonna bring the TRX back out with a hellcat, why? You can't even sell the current TRXs. Why would you bring another truck out? It just, logically, this makes no sense. So I think what you're hearing is 1% of the enthusiasts that say, oh, you know what, I have a hellcat, a TRX, I'll never buy an RHO. Dude, I totally get that person. But keep in mind, that's 14,000 trucks a year made for TRX. The other 500,000 are coming from regular 1500s. How many of those people are gonna say, you know what, I wanna give up worse fuel economy, worse performance, because I just want the Hemi? Maybe there are some. I think you're gonna see the same thing that happened with Ford, the same thing that happened with Toyota, the same thing that happened with GM. You're hearing people say, you know what? Yeah, I miss the sound of the V8. I totally get that, 100%. The V8 sounds amazing. The Coyote sounds amazing. The Hemi sounds amazing. The Hemi sounds great. But would you give up sound for fuel economy and performance? I mean, these are more modern engines. I personally think this inline 6-cylinder will be a more robust engine than a Hemi, a 5.7 Hemi. Now, if you compare that to the Hellcat, no, I think the Hellcat is a monster. I think in its stock form, I think if you take care of those motors, I think that's easily a very reliable engine. It's super overbuilt. But considering 99% of the people can't afford a TRX, this is just my thoughts and perspectives of why did the 2025 Ram 1500 get Motortrend Truck of the Year, and do I think we'll ever see a V8 back? If we do see a V8 back, it's gonna be a small percentage of vehicles. Maybe they're gonna make an RHO light and throw a 6.4 in it and make this, you know, a Scat Pack RHO or something. I could possibly see that, but I don't see a Hellcat TRX, or maybe they're gonna go hybrid. Anyhow, these are just my thoughts and perspectives, but I do think we're probably not gonna see a V8 coming back. And one last thing, there's a few channels talking about big orders were just placed with Stellantis around Hellcats. Well, why would they do that? A few things. I think Chrysler and a lot of the automotive industry, I've already talked about this because I'm well connected in the automotive industry, there's lots of suppliers already looking to increase their supply chain. If in fact these 25% tariffs do take place in Mexico, where's the Hellcat made? Mexico. And here's another thought. If the Hellcat is in fact dead, and we're not gonna see this ever again, it's not uncommon in the automotive industry. They have to create service parts for the next 10 to 15 years that if an engine blows up under warranty, if someone wants a crate engine, what they have to do is have engines available. Or if someone's in a car accident, breaks the engine, they have to have inventory available. Well, if they're doing one big last production order of Hellcats, it makes sense if there's a potential 25% price increase coming in just a few weeks. Would you want to get that order in place and maybe try to get these engines built before the tariff takes place? It could be a 25% cost savings for them. So do I think there's a Hellcat truck that's coming back out? I don't think so, because there's thousands of TRXs available that nobody wants right now, even at discounted prices. So logically, it's not a good business move. I think it's probably much more simple that they're trying to do a lower cost production run with building service parts. Anyhow, guys, I hope you enjoy the video. I'll talk about this content more if you guys want to hear these different insights. But from someone that's been in the automotive industry for 20 years, I think there's a lot of bad information that's spread across YouTube and other social media platforms with people that don't really understand the dynamics of the industry. Thanks for watching.